Okay, just two more quick ones. Sawyer's Commandos, periodically there would be some kind of command given for all of the Maine State Guard units to come to Augusta or some designated city. And, part of it was training, part of it was, verbal instruction, some of it was R&R. And one particular time, Sawyer's Commandos, that's Searsport's Maine State Guard unit, was assigned by the provost to be the MPs for the weekend, which was kind of frustrating because it was supposed to be an R&R type of opportunity too. But because of this designation by the provost, they had to do it. It came from the colonel, so the order stood. And my dad was assigned to go out into Augusta to the hot spots and round up the delinquent soldiers and bring them back to Camp Keys. And while they were out, they had a deuce and a half that they were using to round people up with. They got to a particular bar and they discovered Lieutenant was having a really good time. And when they were in the process of instructing the lieutenant that he needed to call it a night, he got a little upset and said, "Do you know who I am? I'm a lieutenant. You're just a tech sergeant," and blah, 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 blah. The type of thing. "I'm an officer and you're an enlisted," and all this other crap. And my father convinced him that it would be in his best interest to get into the truck and be no more of a nuisance. And he started to calm down and headed for the front of the truck to get into the passenger seat. And my father said, "No, that's my seat. You'll ride in the back with the rest of the men that we've rounded up, sir." And that started a whole new fracas. And my father ultimately told him, "You will either do as you're told, or I will throw you in the back of this truck, sir." And of course, the lieutenant never really had, I guess, the balls to try it. So he climbed into the back and he protested, but he rode along. And as soon as they got to Camp Keys, the lieutenant, went, straight to the colonel's office and issued his request and protest that Tech Sergeant Moody have charges for threatening a superior officer. Well, Dad was called to the colonel's office, and the lieutenant was there standing at parade rest, but he was still standing. He wasn't seated. And the colonel asked Tech Sergeant Moody for his version of the story, and they didn't quite match. And the colonel asked the lieutenant, "You want to change any part of your report, Lieutenant?" And the lieutenant said, "No, sir, that is exactly what happened, and he's not telling the truth." And the colonel thanked Tech Sergeant Moody and dismissed him and said, "This will be the end of it." Yeah, that lieutenant ended up not a lieutenant. In that same particular weekend, when they got back from another excursion, rounding people up, Dad sent his men to chow, and the mess hall lights were way low, and they found themselves locked out. And that was kind of a shock. The the sergeant who was in charge of the mess hall had closed the kitchen. That he wasn't going to serve anymore. You're too late. You didn't show up on time. I'm not going to serve you. And my father ripped the screen door off and got in the sergeant's face. And he said, "You will feed my men." They were out. They were doing their duty. They were serving this battalion, and you and I can step outside. But of course, the mess sergeant relented and fed the men. That was an interesting story too. Kind of reminds me of the day Dad told it to me, and I'm a little choked up about it because that's the kind of loyalty my father had.